Good morning. My name is Brooke Weens, and I am the associate pastor here at Crossroads, and it's really nice to see you all. Let me be honest, I can't really see you that much because of this beautiful light on me, but it's good to see you. That's better. But I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy for whatever brought you here today. I'm glad that you're here. And if this is your first time, welcome. And if this is your 500th time, welcome. You know, as I continue to live and take in the world, I am constantly realizing just like how sacred of a space this is, how special of a space this is, a safe space for people to land, for immigrants, for the queer community, for people that have been painfully hurt by church. And it's because of you that we have this space, that we have a space where people can show up, land, and experience a new way of church. And so I think that it's just good to take a moment to just appreciate what we have. So thank you for creating that. Yeah, give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you for creating that space and by being here and committing to this peacemaking path of Jesus. For those of you that have been here the last couple of weeks, we are in our fourth week of this series on change. We as a church are experiencing change as we sell this building and move into another one over the course of, who knows, months, years, I don't know. And we're also looking around at our world and seeing incredible change. Maybe you in your personal life are experiencing lots of change. And this series called The Space Between, all about change. And as we continue this series, I just want you to picture this scene with me. Allow that imagination, visualization to come. I want you to picture this scene with me, okay? There's three hikers. Let me bring out the teacher in me. There's three hikers. How many hikers? Well done. We're off to a good start. There are three hikers, okay? They are in the wilderness. One of them is experienced, has done this before, is prepared, has the backpack, has the fancy shoes, and the water purifier, straw, and all the things you Coloradans probably have in your car. So one experienced hiker and two hikers that maybe this is their first hike, maybe second hike, haven't really done this. And they set out on a journey in the early afternoon. One minor detail that the experienced hiker forgot to tell the two hikers that were with them is that this trail is not a short trail. It is not a 1 mile hike. It is not a 2 mile hike. It may or may not be a 16-mile hike. You guys laugh because you're like, no, thank you. So minor detail that this experienced hiker forgot to share. And so as you can imagine, the trail is going, the inexperienced hikers are enjoying the alpine trees and the views. And then they start to realize it's been a little bit, and they ask, as anybody would, right? How far ahead is the lake that has been promised? What is up ahead again? How far? And of course, the experienced hiker, knowing full well that they have royally messed up, says, "Oh, it's just around the corner." It is just around the corner. The greatest sentence of deception. And so these beginner hikers continue on the journey, and then they start to kind of pick up that just around the corner might be a lie. And so they continue, they ask again, how much farther? By this time, it's kind of from a place of irritation because tired, they're hungry, they're hot. There's definitely been some steep climbs that they also were unaware of. This was not like a 200-foot elevation gain. It was like a 1,500-foot elevation gain. If you know, you know. And so as the soreness comes, the experienced hiker has to then admit, oh, it's 16 miles. And as you can imagine, the inexperienced hikers let that experienced hiker have it, as was deserved. They did make it to the beautiful Alpine Lake. You'll have to ask the inexperienced hikers if it was worth it. And on the way back, nightfall came. Were they prepared for nightfall? No, they weren't. And so they had one headlamp and some phones. They made it back. Yes, there was some deer eyes in the trees that scared them quite a lot. The experienced hiker tried to let them know that it was not wolves. There are not wolves in California, but the inexperienced hikers did not seem to mind or care. Confession, who do you think was the experienced hiker? Oh, who said that? You got it. It was me, I confess. I absolutely deceived my then girlfriend, now wife, and one of our friends together. We're married, so it worked out okay. You can ask her about it later. She posted it on her Instagram, so it must have meant something to her. You know, it's a crazy thing to start on a journey and to not know what's ahead. I think that most of us can say that we don't usually sign up for that. Have you ever taken the risk of starting a journey and not really knowing where it's going to end? Maybe you were promised a glorious destination, and along the way you questioned and asked yourself, is this really worth it? I don't know if this is worth it. How much farther? Maybe you experienced heartbreak and you entered into a new relationship, and this new person has promised security. It feels fresh, but there's something in you that's been on this path before and is a little unsure about where this could be. Or maybe it's a new job that boasts of all sorts of benefits and opportunities, but you're just not sure if all those business slogans really are going to add up. The reality is that change, it asks us to walk into the unknown. There's your first fill-in. I'm sorry it took me so long. Some of you were anxiously waiting, or maybe you guessing. Change, it asks us to walk into the unknown. There is a moment before we realize what is actually happening. There is a moment where change is taking place and we don't even know it yet. Maybe it's happening right now. There is this moment where change is happening, change is up ahead, change is around us, and we're just not sure yet. And it's at this moment where we kind of sense something. We sense movement, we sense something, that all of these what if questions start popping in our head, right? Well, what if this happens, and what if that, and what if I don't know, and what if they're not, and what if... I'm a what if person. It's not a greatest quality at times. And we begin to question many things, and we maybe even begin to question ourselves. What if I can't do this? What if I don't know? What if I wasn't made for this? And what begins to happen in this what if, as we kind of sense change's presence, is that change creates this crack in our identity. We can start to forget who we are, especially if we don't like ourselves. Change starts to come, it starts to get us to question, it starts to get us to forget, and our identity and our belief in ourselves starts to waver. There starts to be cracks, and there starts to feel this feeling of like, I am crumbling. Where is my security? Where is it? Change can really challenge our beliefs about ourselves, about our mission, about our purpose. And then when we let this change, this crack in our identity, when we forget who we are, we often will reject change. We'll reject it. No. And then we'll start to become stagnant, set in place, dig our heels in the ground. No. I have a 19-month-old. It hasn't happened yet. We're in the phase right now of my baby, my slide, my mom. I'm like, okay. But you know, when we start to reject that change, we start to become stagnant, we stick our feet in the ground, and we don't want to move. And it is often from this place of stagnation, from this place of no, that troubles are born. When we can't imagine the future, when we can't imagine change, movement, there is a problem. The problem is that stagnant people can't dream. Stagnant people can't dream when they are stuck, No, stagnant people can't dream. And who doesn't want to be a dreamer? We are drawn to dreamers. We love to dream, and visionaries. We put them in positions of power. We make them leaders and bosses. We put them as teachers. We want to listen to them. We love to dream, to imagine what can be. You know, I am entering into student teaching. I'm entering into getting my teaching license and my master's. And in education, and a lot of times in classrooms, we have students learn the I have a dream speech. I remember in 3rd grade memorizing it, standing very proud and reciting it. No, I do not remember it, unfortunately. But we love a dream. And the reality is that a lack of a dream is not what causes stagnation. It's not that somebody doesn't have a dream and that's why they're stagnant. Rather, the opposite. Stagnation causes people not to dream. They're stuck in the here and the now in this safe little box of no, 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 and dreams die. When we're not in motion, life is slowly leaving us. There is a need to move. And there's a problem when we're not. And change is that tension, is that opportunity to challenge that stagnation. And in Scripture, there's so many stories of people on the move. There's so many stories of people who maybe they were stagnant themselves, maybe they were dreamers, maybe they weren't, where there was a relocation. And we're going to look at one of those stories today. One of the greatest examples that we have of movement, of change, is the story of Abraham. A story of Abraham is a story of him being asked to leave his father's house, to leave familiarity, and to step into the great unknown. It's a story and a journey that takes him and turns him into a border crosser and an immigrant. It asks him to leave his familiar land and to go into something new. This story is found in Genesis chapter 12. In Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 4, Abraham is called to move at the young age of 75. How does that sound? Any of you in your 70s? I just turned 33 on Thursday, so ask me in 40 years. But can you imagine, 75, you get this calling to leave. He was called to leave the city where his father died. He was called to continue on to this journey to Canaan, the promised land, you might have heard it. And it was a journey that his family had previously started and then stopped, took a little respite, and then he was asked to continue. The verse in verse 1 says, "Now the Lord said to Abraham, go. Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you." I'm going to be honest, I do not like this verse. Can I tell you why? Can I just be honest? Growing up in the evangelical faith, growing up going to Bible college, mission work, evangelism, all of these words, there was this constant pressure to go. Go save them, go get them. So my natural reaction when I opened up this and I read this first verse was like, no. But you're in luck. I am going to speak, and I'm not going to speak about evangelism today in the way that you know it. So have no fear if you don't also like the idea of being called to go. It's not going to happen today. But this verse, what it does not say is go to the land that I have explained. Go to the land with this detailed plan. Go to this land once you feel ready. It just says go. And of course ends with in this verse, to the land that I will show you. Abraham's future is not defined by clarity, but his future is defined by his trust in change and movement. He doesn't know. But what he does know is that he is hearing, maybe audibly, maybe a thought, who knows? He is hearing to go to a land that he does not know. His future is defined by clarity. He knows that it is just a calling. And it's crazy to me because our journey, our tradition, ironically takes us back. This story of Abraham, the birth of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, some of the major religions in the world, Go back to a border crosser, a wanderer. Abraham, at times, was a very flawed example of courage and faith. At his time, there was no paperwork to prove where he was from, to prove where he was going. He was just called on a move. He was called to go. And you know what this verse really does show me about the heart of God? When I look at this story, when I look at the story of Abraham and his wandering, when I look at the story of this calling, it shows me that God is for immigrants. God is for immigrants. Quite literally, he calls Abraham to wander, to border cross, to go. This is the beginning, like I said, of the major religions of the world. And for many people, immigration, border crossing is a very traumatic experience. It's incredibly traumatic to flee a place that no longer feels safe and to go somewhere else seeking safety. I've never experienced that before. And I just see so much of this narrative that, it's not, that they're not, these are dangerous people when they just have gone on traumatic journeys. And it's this idea that they are creating all of this violent crime in America. Immigrants are sneaking into our country. It's so false. To think for a second what it would be like to leave what you know. I cannot talk about change, and I cannot talk about movement, and I cannot talk about the story of Abraham and his wandering and his border crossing and this calling of God. I cannot do it without talking about, for just a moment, soapbox. The atrocities that we are seeing across our country. Can we just pause for a moment and honor that? We here at Crossroads, we stand with the immigrant community. We stand with refugees. We stand against racism. We stand against fascism. We stand against violence that is not welcome here. We stand for peace and we stand for justice. And most importantly, we stand firmly on this peacemaking path of Jesus. What we're seeing in the world right now to this precious community of people is unbelievably anti-God and anti-Jesus. It is so far from that, and I will be honest, I'm so angry. But I'm trying to hold the space of the Jesus of flipping tables. And I think that we should be a little bit. And you know what I imagine? I imagine that the same people who are using these Bible verses and they're putting them on as like propaganda for violence across the world right now, you know what I imagine? That these were probably the same people that were in the crowd yelling, "Crucify him." Because he was different, because he was brown, because he had a single mom, because he was a wanderer himself. And what an opportunity in the midst of such craziness in this world to walk the non-violent, full of love, full of peace, the peacemaking path of Jesus. Now, this does not mean that we turn away in indifference. No. We turn and we look and we read and we listen and we pause and we vote and we protest and we cling and we remember to the humanity that does remain, that is here. That's why this space, honestly, today feels so sacred to me, because I look in the faces of people that are committed to that path, to the non-violent, peacemaking path of Jesus. And I'm not talking today about change on a macro level. That's a very different conversation to talk about change on a national, global level. Boy, do we need it. But we are talking about change on our lives. And so I will leave that at that, and we will move on to verses 2 and 3 in the story of Abraham. Thank you. So verses 2 and 3, we see in verse 1 that Abraham has been called to go, border crosser, leave what you know, enter into a very scary experience of unknown. Verses 2 and 3 read, here's the promise, I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I should have wore a sweatshirt today with like #blessed, yeah? I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. I want to draw attention to the direction of this blessing that is mentioned so many times in this verse. There's kind of like a chain of events. There is God potentially speaking in this, God saying blessing to Abraham. Then Abraham receives this blessing and gives it to others, which then give it to the world. Which means that if Abraham does not move, if Abraham stays put, if Abraham clings to that himself, this hypothetical blessing stops with him. Now, can one decision dismantle the entire peacemaking path of Jesus? No, that would be more like religious manipulation. I'm not saying that. But even science shows us the impact that different systems have on each other. Change in one thing impacts another. For example, we see in our atmosphere the temperatures rising, and it's causing glaciers to melt, which is impacting land and sea levels and ecosystems. We're seeing this change, right? We had a very hot, strange December here, from what I've been told. I've only been here a few years. Or we see how systems impact each other with humanity. Here we are, we live, human activity, it changes the climate. We have emissions and abuse of the land. And then that in turn is altering agriculture and energy producing capabilities. There is an impact that systems have on each other. And the reality is the danger of resisting change is that we will become stagnant and die. From a systems lens, that is the definition of lost vitality. A system that receives but does not circulate. You know, blessings here is not about a specific object. It's not like I'm handing here is your blessing, here is yours. No, but it is this current of hope and peace. And like any current, it only exists while it is moving. And it moves through us. This blessing moves through us out to others, and stagnation is just the end of that. In verse 4, it says that Abraham went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Oh, Lot, we heard about him a little bit last week. Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Now, we don't know if Abraham starts on this journey feeling super hopeful. There's no emotional assurance in this text. We just know that he departed, that he heard, he got the impression to go, to leave on a journey, and he did. So hope in the story, it really shows up as him packing, walking, entering unfamiliar land, building altars in places that he doesn't own or even know. Hope is not a feeling. Hope is this practice of movement, and in our tradition, one might even call this faith. Abraham imagines a future he cannot see and then lives as if it is possible. Abraham imagines a future, he senses this calling from God to go, and he listens and he imagines a future that he does not know. He doesn't know. But he lives as if it's possible. He packs up, he takes his family, and he goes. And so the question is not, what happens if I go? That's not the question we're asking, what happens if I go? But rather, the real question is, what happens if I stay? So I don't want you to miss this. I don't want you to miss this. The story of faith has always been a story of movement, of border crossing, of wandering. That's why we talk about how we're all wandering in our faith experiences here. And change is necessary for life. Movement is the only way to tell if something is really alive. If a heart is just beating but not pumping blood throughout the body, it is not healthy. It's not truly alive. A lung that just exists, but it's not exchanging carbon dioxide and oxygen is not actually alive. A faith that believes but is not moving, is not generating this current. It's not generative. And I'm not saying that this faith is not sincere. No. But it is no longer life-giving. When faith moves us, dreams become memories. When faith moves us, all of these dreams that we've had, they become memories. And how does this happen? Well, because dreams are actually happening. Dreams are happening and they're becoming reality because we are moving and living and letting this current flow. And then something that we remember is something that actually happened. Our dreams just become memories of the past because they're actually taking place. We are continually moving forward so that dreams that are happening right now are just memories of the past one day. So what does this mean? This all sounds nice. What does this mean in our practical lives day to day? Well, the reality is Genesis 12 is not asking us to change countries. This is not about an actual relocation, although I will be honest, that sounds like a little bit of a relief at the moment. I do hear Canada is quite nice. I do. Our friendly neighbors up north. But Genesis 12 is inviting us to practice a way of living that stays in motion rather than settling into autopilot. And it is easy when there is chaos around you to just exist. It's like a survival method to just do. But it is inviting us to stay in motion, to fight against that. And most importantly, it's giving us an opportunity. It's giving yourself the permission to dream. The permission to dream. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe create a vision board. Maybe get a dream journal. Dream holistically. Dream about your physical health, your relationships, your emotional health, your spirituality, your finances. To give ourselves permission to dream. Yes, even in the midst of the things that we are seeing or the things that are taking place, even in the midst of that, permission to dream. And in this series, we've been reminded that change can be really disorienting. Change can be difficult. Aisha talked about the grief journey that we can experience throughout change. Ryan's talked about the feeling of being stuck on this journey. And sometimes we can feel stuck and unsure of what is next. And if we can take one thing from the story of Abraham, it's that there is power in that first step towards change. That movement is just movement. It's truly as simple as one step, as one risk. It's truly a sacred journey to sit back and to allow ourselves to imagine what can be. Have you allowed yourself to imagine what can be recently and to move towards that? To resist complacency and stagnation, to move? I think in the midst of a lot of this dreaming that we really get to know ourselves beyond our circumstances. It's so important to know ourselves beyond our circumstances, because the reality is that circumstances happen to you. They happen around you. They are not you. Circumstances are external. They're temporary. They're unstable. They do not define us. And circumstances will always change. So the question remains, who are you underneath all of the noise? Who are you regardless of what is going on around you? What is your non-circumstantial identity? This is truly an opportunity to separate season from self, to separate from the season of life. And yes, seasons can be busy. The season feels so busy and unstable. It feels stressful and hard. Or maybe you're in a season right now that feels very exciting and rewarding. But the seasons change. What underneath that, though, what underneath this season is you. Loyal you, kind you, hardworking, honest, values integrity, fights for justice, you. And it's that part of you that would still be true even if everything changed tomorrow. That is this non-circumstantial identity. It is you, regardless of what is going on around you. And I encourage you to write that down, to write down, I am. Name the values. Name you. Not the seasons, not the titles that have been handed, not I am mom, I am wife. Those are still circumstantial. I am kind. I am brave. I am bold. As we move, as we change, we are not throwing away our history and story. That's not what I'm saying, but rather we are carrying ourselves into something new. This is an invitation to imagine what can be without abandoning who we are. I really do think that those that know themselves the most deeply are the most open to change. When there is that non-circumstantial identity, when they know regardless of what happens tomorrow, this is who I am, it's a different journey for them. And I think it's because there's so much self-trust, there's so much understanding in who they are, and change is not a threat to identity. They trust themselves on the journey because they know when they get tired, they can take a break. They can take a snack. They can ask a friend for help. They can turn around for a moment even. They can problem solve and adapt. Because living things move, living things change, and it's at the heart of survival. And as the world is showing us, it is changing. And if you aren't sure who you are under those circumstances, it can create that crack in your identity. So if you're not sure, if you're like, I don't know who I am, who am I underneath my circumstances? Teacher, pastor, neighbor, I don't know. Maybe ask some people. Maybe ask 5 of your closest friends or people that are dear to you. Ask them, who am I underneath the circumstances? Who do you see me as? Future-facing people, they move with conviction and clarity. They know who they are, they know what is coming, or they know how to navigate what is coming because of their security and identity, because they are moving. They're not resisting change. They don't see change as a threat to them. They move with conviction and clarity, and it's not so much, I know exactly what is going to happen, but it's clarity of mission, it's clarity of purpose, it's clarity of the flow of this current of blessing and peacemaking. And so what is God inviting you into today? Maybe you hear this story of Abraham, of a border crosser, and that means something a little different right now. Maybe it means to reread the story of Abraham and look at it from a viewpoint of change and movement. Maybe it's to look at it as him as a dreamer and see that he does it incredibly imperfectly. And yet from him, we are literally here. He was the birth, the father of so much. Maybe it means writing down dreams. Maybe it means writing down 3 dreams and asking yourself how you can align your life to pursue them and to more intentionally go after them. Dreams don't have to die. We don't have to become stagnant. Even in the midst of the ever-moving change, dreams can flow. Or maybe it's something as simple as asking those people in your life, what are the values that come to mind when they think of you? What is that non-circumstantial identity? Because I can promise you that underneath all of it, it is beautiful and it is sacred. It is you. We do communion here every week. It's an opportunity for us to pause and reflect. It's an opportunity, I think, even more than ever that we could use to just take a second. To take a second. The band is going to sing this beautiful song titled Kinda Wild. And as we close out our time together, I just wanted to allow a season to reflect and pause. Maybe this is the season for you to dream. This song is talking about this idea of not wanting to stay the same. It is saying at its heart, something in me knows that remaining as I am is no longer faithful to who I'm becoming. Something in me knows that I'm not going to stand here, I'm not going to be stagnant, that there is movement, because there is becoming, there's change, and I'm going to lean into that. Movement is acting on faith. There isn't certainty in it. I'm sorry, I would love that. Faith is not, once I understand, I'll move. Once I know exactly what's going to happen. As we can see every single day as we look at the news, we truly do not know. But faith is, I'll move, and I will understand and grow along the way. I will move, I will dream, I will be a current of this blessing and love and hope and peace. We need it. We will not know it all, but we must march on into this kind of wild love of God. So there is crackers, gluten-free and non-alcoholic juice on the tables. We do this every week. It's a time to pause and reflect. There's no class. There's no prerequisite other than being here and having a willingness to participate in and reflect. So the body of Christ broken for you, the blood of Christ shed for you, and all people on this earth. Please take and eat.